Coffin Shaping 101 both on tips and forms in this video coming up. Hello, I'm Anastasia and I will need stiletto tips and powder by Tony Lee number 87, Glam and Glitz number 71, Perfect Nude by Valentino, Stay Neutral from new blend collection of Glam and Glitz, Swarovski rhinestones. This is the nails that we have. Everything is pretty standard, nothing unusual, and let's get started with prep. I always push back the cuticle with electric nail file. I use diamond flame bit with red abrasive mark, which means medium fine, and I push back the cuticle and get rid of the spreading cuticle across the nail plate. Another way to easily prep the nail is to push it back with pusher or orange wood stick, and then you can do the same thing manually with a regular nail file. I just think it takes less time and it's faster to do it with e-file. Clean the dust from time to time so you will actually see that you are pushing back the cuticle and not filing the natural nail, since it can damage it. After that, I'm going to file the free edge. I will be using 180 grit file. This client doesn't have a very long nail, so I simply need to make them shorter. We're going to use tips on this hand, so for tips you can make the nails as short as possible. For nails growing upwards or downwards, it is necessary to file the free edge short, since when you will apply the tip will try to take the shape of the nail. So if you will make them as short as possible, it will not really affect it and you can create any shape that you like.
Like two fires, movement so graceful, wildcat in the jungle with dangerous claws. Movement she anticipates, a sight is set on her prey. Like stars in the darkest night, crystallize, fascinate. If you wanna stay alive, if you don't wanna be her prey, don't stand in her way. Run, run, run away. Crystallize, 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 watching her prey. Crystallize, 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 fascinate.
Then I will get rid of hangnails. I'm using tweezer scissors. It is something between nippers and scissors. Then I will buff the cuticle area, the sidewalls and surrounding skin. I'm using sphere bead with red abrasive. The speed is around 15,000 rotations per minute. Do not use it at a high speed as it can easily burn the client's skin. This method perfectly works on normal and dry skin because it cleans it so easily and painlessly, or you can also do it manually with a buffer. Next step is choosing the right size of the tips. When measuring tips, it is extremely important to pick the right size. If you're in doubt, it is better to pick the bigger one because you can always file it from the sides, but if you will pick the one that is more narrow than the natural nail plate, you will see cracks on the sides after a few days. I will be using stiletto tips as this is one of the easiest and fastest way to do coffin nails without thinking of symmetrical lines and so on. But you can also use square tips, but then you will have to file them into the coffin. Next step is filing off the surface shine. I'm using 180 grit, and when doing this, remember that our goal is merely to remove the shine, not to file the nail, so do not apply too much pressure and do not leave any shiny spots. Do not forget about cuticle area and the area along the sidewalls. Now clean the dust and apply dehydrator. You can apply it twice when in doubt, and now I'm going to adhere the tip. Make sure it fits once again. Then I will apply glue on the edge of the tip and apply it. Make sure there are no air bubbles. Hold for a few seconds and make sure it fully adheres. And then we're simply going to cut the length and stilettos turn into coffin. Ta-da! Now we can file the shape a little bit. Usually all you need to file is the free edge because the sidewalls are created for us already, and then we need to remove the shine from the tip, and I prefer using buffer for it. This is 180 grit file by Entity. It's really soft and it removes the shine super fast from the tip. And once you see that the tip is fully matte, we also need to file the zone between the natural nail plate and the tip. And the most important part here is to file only the tip, not the nail. I'm using carbide bead to file the tip because for me it is actually easier to file only the tip rather than a hand file, but you need to be super confident about your e-file work because you can easily overfile nail as well. Now our goal is to file it so thin that we will not see any gap between the nail and the tip, but as I get closer to the nail I switch to 180 file. If you still see the white line between the tip and the nail, it means that you still have a gap here. Now all done, and I will use marker to show you how to see the shape. You simply need to divide it into 2 equal parts and then you need to file the same amount from one side and from the other. Here we already have the sidewall, so it's super easy, but if you are filing the coffin shape, let's say from square, then this line might be helpful. You can even use marker or a pencil and do it on your client. I mean, why not? When filing the free edge, also make sure you hold it straight and you are not moving your file back and forth, only straight lines like a train on the rails. Now let me show you it again. Here's the center. We divide the nail into 2 equal parts and both sides should be symmetrical if you look at the center line. Now let's do the application. I will apply dehydrator and non-acid primer only on the part where the natural nail is. No need to apply it on the tip. This one will be a full sparkle bling nail made of 71 powder by Glam & Glitz. It is transparent powder, but it has many glitter and different shiny particles in it, so I think the nail will not really be see-through. Like any glitter powder, it is slow setting one, so it will be perfect for practicing for beginners, and I do not recommend to use too much monomer when working with it because you will have trouble getting it from one side to the other, so it's better to work with consistency closer to dry.
Baby, open up to me. Don't give up so easily. Open up your eyes and see there's more to our story. Baby, open up to me. Don't give up so easily. Open up your eyes and see there's more to our story. Don't leave me.
When I'm done with the application, I'm pinching the nail, and yes, you can pinch acrylic with tips as well. And now let's do the next nail, and this one will be Baby Boomer. Apply dehydrator and non-acid primer. I will start with free edge. This is white with sparkles. You probably cannot really see the sparkles. Oh no, now you can. So this is 71 by Tony Lee. It has small glitter and hexagons in it. I think it's pretty cool. The advantage of working with tips is that you do not need to worry about the shape and the length once the tip is there. And by the way, I used to work with tips for 2 years when I was just getting started, and it helped me a lot because when you cannot feel acrylic yet, when you're struggling with consistency and so on, it is really a challenge working on forms. The tip at least guides you the shape and you're basically applying the product on top. But as you grow as a professional and become more experienced, I believe that tips start limiting our abilities a little bit. So for now, I mostly work on forms, and the main reason for me is that it takes me less time, and another reason is that I can create any shape that I like. For example, the tips are always limited to the shape and length that we can find. After stretching the white, I did the same with the nude color, and Glam & Glitz recently launched the blend collection, and there's the color neutral, which you can apply on top. It is a semi-translucent pink nude color that will hide this line between the two colors and was actually designed to use for ombre, so if you apply it on top of Baby Boomer, it will help to make this fade look even better. I am applying it right now, and besides blending the colors better, it will also help me to encapsulate the design and to build the missing apex, so you can use it like that as well. We're done with the application on this one, and this is how the full hand looks after application. I haven't filed anything yet on tips. Now let's do the same style coffin shape but on forms. After filing the nails short, I will remove the surface shine with 180 grit. So the prep, this part is not any difference with how you prep the nails for the tips application. My personal opinion is that for forms you need to file nails short as well, because if you will leave the long free edge, it may prevent you from fitting the form right. For example, some nails are really flat, or it may be the opposite, they are very curved. So it will make you a hard time when fitting the form, so my recommendation is to file them short, especially the corners. Then I am going to fit the form. For traditional coffin shape, the form should go a little downwards and it should be tapered at the edge. I apply dehydrator and non-acid primer and start application with the free edge. So basically I am creating a tip now. And by the way, this particular color, this is the same one I used on the tip, but it will look completely different when we do this nail with the form, because remember the tip was clear, so the layer of the product was thinner, and here I am going to create the whole nail out of sparkle, so it will look a little different. When doing coffin shape on tips, the most important part is to shape the tips well. When doing sculptured coffin on forms, you need to create the sidewalls right now. Make sure that they are symmetrical on both sides. Many nail technicians think that the most important part when doing sculptured coffin shape is the filing part, but I want to assure you that the most crucial and important part is definitely the application, because if one side is simply missing, there is no way you can fix it with a file. I'll tell you more, the final look of the shape totally depends on how you will work with your brush right now. Filing can only retouch it a little bit, make the lines more firm, but it cannot really change the structure overall. So make sure you're building the apex properly, make sure the sidewalls are with the same angle and the free edge is straight. Another important thing when applying product both on tips and forms is to apply it evenly. If one side will be much thicker than the other, then you will not be able to pinch it. I mean, you will, but the curve will be looking to the side, so also check if the thickness of the product is even on both sides. It may look like the application on forms takes longer time, and it is probably true. Yes, it does take more steps, but the filing part definitely takes less, and also we didn't spend any time on measuring the tip, on gluing the tip, but I will not lie that fitting the form also takes time, especially if you're just getting started. Now I will encapsulate the color with clear. I recommend you to do it at all times when working with glitter, and after a few minutes we can take off the form and pinch the nail as well. Now let's do the other one, the Baby Boomer. Dehydrator and non-acid primer, and I will start the application with the same white color by Tony Lee. I will create the free edge, and this first step is the most important because basically you are creating this tip, so make sure it is even and symmetrical. By the way, working with white powder, if it contains some glitter, is much easier than the regular white because it sets slower. So this trick might help you if you're struggling with white color application, because regular whites usually they set much faster compared to other colors. I always encourage nail techs and my students to try to do your best when working with a brush. Do not leave it, do not rush to the next step, just try to make the surface as smooth as possible to eliminate filing time. If you're working with proper consistency, acrylic gives you enough time to play with it and to make the shape how you like it. But if you will use consistency with more monomer than needed, the wet consistency, then you will simply waste too much time by gathering the product into place and then it will set. Then I will take nude, this is Perfect Nude by Valentino, and I will stretch it in the opposite direction. When blending the colors, keep in mind that we are not just doing some design, we are also building the nail, so you need to follow all the guidelines that we follow when doing the sculptured nails, like the apex area in the middle should be thick, the cuticle area and the side walls should be thinner. The free edge for this length should be around credit card thickness. I'm using the exact same colors and exact same technique for both hands, it just one was with tips and this one will be on forms. Now I will add more color because I want this line to be blended better, so I softly stretch it, but when stretching the nude, make sure it will not fully cover the white, because we still need to see this beautiful white free edge. If you accidentally apply it too much, you can always add more white on the top. Now when you're happy with the fade and with the colors, it is time to encapsulate it, and I will be using Neutral by Glam and Glitz to encapsulate and also to make this fade color look even better and blended. After it sets, I will pinch it as well, and now let's check and compare. And whoops, the one on the right on forms looks more like almond, and the left one was on the tip, the right one was on forms. But let's see how they look and are they much different after filing. So I start filing the nail on the tip, and filing technique doesn't differ that much from tips to forms. The only difference is that with tips, usually you have less filing of the shape and sidewalls because we already filed them when we were applying the tips. But it depends, and it always depends on the application. Nail technicians usually ask me like, how long should it take you to file the full set? Or how long does it take me to do it? And it's just all about the application. If you apply the product well, then it shouldn't take long, like up to 15, max 20 minutes. If it takes you longer, then there must be the only reason why it's taking so long is that because you applied more product than needed and now you're simply wasting the time of filing it off. But do not feel sad if it takes you long, it's totally fine, because we're all learning. I just recommend you to focus on the application and do not rush and really put some effort into applying the product better. Another simple filing trick for any shape, but especially the coffin, is to file the surface first. Do not rush filing those sidewalls and that free edge. Make sure that the surface is all smooth, the cuticle area and so on, and only after that focus on sidewalls and so on. When filing the sidewall, make sure that the file is moving only straight. No curves, no moving around, your elbow should go only straight back and forth. When doing this, make sure you are sitting straight, your legs are not crossed or twisted, because if you are leaning too much on one side, then this side more likely will be overfiled. I had this problem for a long time during my competitions until Trang Nguyen, who is CEO of Odyssey Nail Systems, finally told me, Anastasia, you need to sit straight and don't cross your legs when filing, because if your body will be leaning on one side, then the nails you are doing will be there as well. Meanwhile, I switched to carbide bead to file the sidewalls and the surface, and you can use e-file as well, but for shaping you will still need to use hand file. My absolute favorite bit at the moment for filing the surface is this one. It's cone-shaped, and because it is so narrow on the edge, I can go closer to the cuticle, and it's green abrasive. Now, when the surface is absolutely smooth and you're totally happy with it, only now it is the right time to file the sidewalls and the shape. Currently, I'm filing the nail that was created on tips, so basically we already did the filing. But make sure you will not overfile the surface, especially in the corners or on the sides, so you cannot see the tip through. You can mark the center line as well. I always do it with my students so they can clearly see where the central line is. So you will move both sides towards this line. And now I'm switching to the other hand, and here we have sculptured nails. And usually from the first side it looks like there is so much to file, but usually I just have to lightly file the surface and shape the sidewalls and the free edge. And like I said, do not rush with the shaping part. First, make sure that the surface is good, that the apex is in the center. If you notice that the apex moved somewhere closer to the cuticle, then you need to file this part first until it's there where you need it. Now, when filing the sidewall, make sure that you start filing from the widest part of the natural nail. One of the biggest mistakes when doing coffin shape is to make the sides so narrow that the nail will start to look like a ski jump nail, like it's growing upwards. So to avoid this mistake, if you're using forms, make sure it is fit a little bit downwards, and when placing the tip, the same thing, do not overfile it on the sides. Usually there are no big problems when filing the bling nail, but when you're filing the baby boomer, it is also important do not overfile the color. But if you encapsulated it with clear or with neutral color like I did, usually you will not have this problem. Just make sure you will not overfile the sidewalls. And we're done with the filing. So the left one, the left on the screen, was made with tips and the right one is sculptured. And I'm really curious if you guys could tell if I didn't tell you which one is tips and which one is forms. Now, really, there's not like dramatic difference about them, it's mostly about the process. And the last trick with filing, when filing the sidewall, make sure that your file is straight as well, like this, and totally straight so you can see this green line when filing the free edge. I was using mostly 180 file, so I will not need to buff them, but you can buff the surface as well, and then we will seal them with the top coat. So overall, the process took me around 3 hours together with filming, but that was also because I did just one hand from beginning to the end and then the other one. Usually I do both hands at the same time. The hand I did with tips took me around 2 hours and the sculptured hand took me about 1 hour, but also we need to keep in mind that I work only with forms, so obviously I have more experience with it and that's why it takes me less time as well. I mean, if I was using tips on a daily basis, probably I could do it fast too. But I'm still curious, on which side are you guys? What do you use more often, tips or forms? Please share in the comments, or maybe some of you are like 50-50. Like I said, I use forms because it's easier and faster for me and it does not limit me with any shapes preferences. But for beginners, I will definitely recommend to learn to do it on tips first, so you will not stress over all this form fitting and can focus on how to work with product. And it applies both for gel, for acrylic and for polygel. And here is the wow moment, by the way, when you apply the top coat on this glitter nail and the client is like, wow, it's not gonna be matte, it's all shiny and beautiful. Cure in LED for 30 seconds and let's add some bling. I will use my favorite Bling On by Accents gel and apply some rhinestones. Some small ones and some big ones. These are all Swarovski, that's why they shine so well, and some caviar beads in between. Cure and do not forget to outline each crystal so it will stay there for weeks. And we're done here. By the way, we did a little poll among regular people, not nail technicians, if they can see the difference between those hands, and most people said no, I do not see much difference. They were mostly looking at some particular design or crystals, so that means that in the real life it is not much difference between tips and forms. As long as you do your job well, it's more about the process. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you're first time here on my channel, consider subscribing as I post educational videos just like this one every week. And I will see you in my next one. Goodbye!